Hey everyone, Cody Menz here. I have another WoT's new video for you today. Little quick one today, just going over some super test stuff. Also the upcoming anniversary event that was delayed to August 17th due to some internet issues in Minsk with everything going on over there. And gonna touch really quickly on some tips for basically equipping some of your tanks. Alright, so let's jump into things here. Kind of starting out. Anniversary Act 5 is starting now August 17th due to some issues where you're going to be able to get 7 premium tanks basically just for logging in, and you'll also have an option to get the A46 British light tank as well. So not only do you get some previous tanks that were given out for anniversary events, you also get a brand new one, the Valiant. And if you already own some of these tanks, basically you get 100,000 credits for each, some anniversary coins and garage slot, regardless of, if you already have them, basically you're going to get those freebies anyway. So pretty nice stuff. And with, so the Valiant, so that's a brand new tank, obviously, tier 5, pretty much the best reward that they've given out when it comes to that. You also have the A46, which virtually everybody should get. You might have to play some battles to be able to get it. When it comes to some special missions, you can play in those tanks that they're giving out for free. And also the Valiant, if you don't have enough tokens, because you can buy 15 for 1,500 tokens, the A46, which is a tier 6 British light. And it's brand new, pretty nice. It's your typical light tank. They're nice little freebies they're giving out, especially for like free-to-play players and like newer players. And regardless if you can just buy it for tokens or do the missions to get it, it's some nice, honestly, big rewards. I know some people were expecting the Object 780, but honestly, do you really expect them to give a tier 10 tank out for free? I don't know. I think it's going to be the Clan War reward. Bleh. I still think we're going to see the Polish premium be a marathon coming up in the future, though. In any event, though, what you should do with this, to be completely honest, is you should kind of play these low tier premiums, do these missions, bang it out real fast, also with the Valiant, because if you can get the A46 for free by doing it that way, it takes a little bit of effort. You save all these anniversary coins, then you can spend them if you go into the store here. You just pop open your store, then you go to exterior, and honestly, the best bang for your buck, buy some of these camouflages, the camouflages in here. Because if you can do that, especially, for the specific ones for the tanks, but the ones that work for all tanks, you're saving yourself having to spend gold or credits to get those camouflages. That's one nice thing about this, if you can get the tank without spending your coins for it. Otherwise, 10 days of premium time if you haven't seen, just for logging in, and you get it once per day. Pretty awesome, to celebrate the 10-year anniversary as well. They're also going to be putting in a 10% discount on tier 6 to 8 premium tanks. That'll be permanent, and it's pretty awesome. Again, like granted, these tanks, a lot of them are older, but you can kind of see which ones they are doing. And for the most part, I didn't really expect them to do this, but it's kind of a nice little gesture. The tanks honestly are still a little bit priced high, let's be honest here. They probably could have slashed them 20%, but in any event, it's something nice, especially for newer players who might not have certain tanks. Getting on to some super test stuff. All these links, again, you can find in the video description in the order that you see them. Highly recommend popping over. A lot of these are from rykozet.info here. So they're rebalancing German and Chinese medium tanks, and they also snuck in, an Object 140. Object 140, so they are giving it a little bit more gun depression. And this is all super test stuff, not confirmed to come out, but, it gives you a general idea of what they're trying to do. They're also increasing the armor by 10 millimeters, which buffs its effective armor up to 260. Is this going to have a huge impact against tier 8s? Some tier 9s, yes. Not really going to be that effective against tier 10s, albeit shooting standard rounds now, you will have to be a little bit careful if you're at like further ranges and stuff, or if it's a little higher than you, if you're playing with just standard rounds, you have to hit it in the lower glacis. So that's the main change here. I don't think it's really going to make it that much better. The gun depression's the larger thing, which honestly I don't think it should get 7 degrees of gun depression, but that's just me. Bigger change though, so there's 121 and a little bit more elaboration, so I'm just going to glance over this quickly. You know, adding some armor, buffing the gun, and increasing the engine power and the projectile speed. Nice things. Or increasing it for the standard round, excuse me, but decreasing it for the premium and HE round. Now these are actually going to be revised. There's a second screen here with some revised super test notes. So the projectile speed, just ignore that if you're going to be looking at these. And when it comes to like the WZ-120, they're going to be buffing this, basically more armor, buffing the guns, a little bit of mobility for the Chinese medium, so making them a little bit more beefier and like terrifying, but not as good as heavy tanks, you know, and the whole survivability. So nice changes for the Chinese mediums, which are honestly kind of glanced over and they're not exactly that popular for the most part. E-50M, I was honestly shocked at this. They're just slapping a crap ton of turret armor on the front of it. The sides basically will still bounce shots, but if you don't angle them, say if you reduce some of the angle, you'll get penned really easily, and especially in this little, you know, little eyeballs here, the V rangefinders, you'll get penned. However, you know, the turret front's getting buffed. Honestly, you know, even though it's great, I don't think it's really the right move, because it just kind of makes it, you know, and they're doing the same thing, you know, for the E50 below it. They just, you know, it doesn't really make it special. It's still gonna suck, to be honest. It's still not gonna have good DPM. Like there's nothing great about it. But you know, whatever. It's super test, so we don't exactly know if these are the final changes. I thought they'd be better off doing a little armor buff, but you know, giving it a bit more DPM, maybe actually buffing the whole armor a little bit, and you know, making it so it's balanced in a way so you have the objects say 430, which, you know, when it comes to great turret armor, high alpha gun, poor accuracy, and the whole armor is okay. But then you have the E-50M where you have a slightly weaker turret, accurate gun, you know, basically more reliable gun, but it does a lot less damage per shot, but you have better hull armor. I think it could have been pretty interesting, but who knows. Moving on to this screen though, more info on the Chinese ones. These are second iteration of the super test, so they really only changed the Chinese one around, and you know, they tweaked the 121 a bit more, and this goes into a little bit more detail on what they're actually changing. And for these tanks as well, like they rectified the shell velocity that they accidentally changed, and you know, the changes seem nice. Like the Chinese mediums are kind of, you know, beefier medium tanks, and these changes I think will be good for them. Also on super test, so they're redesigning Westfield and Erlingberg. There's a video here. This is from WoT Express that Ryko's has linked to. Basically Westfield changing around, you can see these buildings here, changing around the location and angles and stuff on those. And when it comes to Erlingberg, you saw in a previous video kind of switching around part of the town on one side. There's also on super test, they're testing Battle Pass Season 3, which will be coming out September-ish. And with this, you are going to have an option to get a token from the Battle Pass to select the piece of bounty equipment that you would like to receive, instead of it being locked in place like you must get a gun rammer or a gun laying drive. You'll actually be able to pick. Otherwise, you know, that's kind of good changes. They're also super testing another change for Empire's Border. They have redesigned option number 1, which is what they've kind of been going off of. This is close to, you know, what they've been testing. And then there's a brand new one as well, option 2, which I think is actually pretty neat and interesting. You can see a little bit more detail here. This change looks out, honestly, I think it's pretty interesting, the one that they have for option 2. I think they're going to go with option 2 just with the amount of like work and stuff that they've done on it. I think that, you know, option 2 is kind of the way that they're going to lean towards. It seems like a pretty cool map, honestly, and it's going to be different. Alright, so last but not least, equipment. Just touching on this real fast. Also, I'm gonna show a couple tanks which I think I found like little different like niche setups that I've been playing and I've actually been really enjoying. Share your favorite setups for specific tanks that you found, you know, in the comment section here. Something that if you've watched my live stream, this is kind of what I'm doing on my other screen when I'm kind of putting equipment on my new tanks, because a lot of, you know, people are using gun rammers, you know, vents, optics. You have the improved aiming unit, improved rotation mechanism, and obviously there's other pieces of equipment too that you can put on your tanks. But something that I'm actually doing, because, you know, vertical stabilizers really important before the equipment changes and even after. But should you leave that on one of your tanks, especially, you know, high tier tanks? So something I'm doing is, so it really depends on these three factors. Tanks.gg is a really good, you know, most people know the tool. Unfortunately, they didn't add in the gun handling, you know, on the move accuracy penalties. So you're looking at moving, tank traverse, and turret traverse. So moving, you know, best you moving at maximum speed, so on and so forth. Tank traverse, so turning your hull, and then turret traverse, so moving your turret. So what do these values mean? The higher the value, the worse they are. Generally speaking, if you have, so a 0.15 value, and this is just me going off of things here, I haven't tested any of this, but this is just from years of playing and just feel. 0.15 value for moving and tank traverse is average. It's not crazy good, but it's also not bad. You can kind of get away with a vertical stabilizer without it at 0.15. So for tanks at 0.15, I might consider dropping a V stabilizer for like vents and go like vents, rammer, optics, or something like that. Or put a different piece of equipment on instead of a vertical stabilizer. It's very important though to note turret traverse, because you're moving your turret, if you have a tank with a turret, a hell of a lot of times. You might not always be turning your hull, but you're always, you know, moving your turret and stuff if you're tracking targets. So while I just said 0.15 is a very good value, for turret traverse, 0.08 is kind of average. 0.10 is okay, but you're starting to notice, you know, your shell or your aiming circle bloom when you're turning your turret, especially if you combine it with moving your tank. But 0.08 is actually pretty good. You don't notice that much of a change. So if you have over 0.10, like you see for the T-57 Heavy, T-110E4, it's freaking god awful. Everyone knows, you know, when you're playing these tanks, you're, you know, it blooms, especially moving and now moving your turret. So something like a Manicore, you can actually get away with it without a V stabilizer. M48 Patton, T110E5, because especially they buff this turret traverse, because this is kind of the most, even though you're just moving from like 0.08 to 0.06, this stat is massive here. So this is kind of the most important one. And secondary is kind of, you know, these two, where as long as it's not above 0.15, you're kind of good, but you need to keep an eye on the turret traverse. So all in all, you know, it's just something that I keep an eye on, because I'll actually take a V stabilizer off of something like the M48 or the T110E5 Manicore, because you can actually get away with it, and you can put something else on, like the improved vents in a slot, or you can put like a turbocharger, or you can put like the commander vision system or something else, and you don't really notice the accuracy change. However, for tanks like the T-57, you want to basically keep your V stabilizer and, you know, stuff like that. In any event though, a couple tanks I have set up a little bit differently. So the T-110E5, granted I put bond equipment on this. I've actually really liked the way that I've done this. So improved configuration, and you can use this without the bond equipment as well. So I got a gun rammer and also vents, maxing out, you know, my DPM, so 37, you know, 50 basically for the DPM. On top of that, I do have a directive on there as well, which kind of helps. However, a lot of people that watch me know I don't really like using food, and especially on an E5, you get set on fire a lot, ammo racked, because your modules are pretty weak HP wise. So putting this, especially the bond one, improved configuration, you don't really notice, like, you don't get your ammo rack damaged anymore, fire, stuff like that, which is awesome. It actually makes me put food on, and I can kind of max out DPM. I do sacrifice a little bit of V range, however my V range still is over that 440 or 445 meters, excuse me, V range, which is pretty important. So I think this setup's actually pretty nice, where you do not need a V stabilizer anymore, so it opens up that third slot for you. Like, you could put optics on there, you could put like a turbocharger, but I'm like, why not use this? Because it actually opens up for me to use, you know, food, which, yeah, it's been interesting so far. T-57, kind of talking about that tank, this thing is really freaking accurate. If you set it up, you do sacrifice some view range, so you only have 432 meters. However, putting vents on and then using the improved aiming unit and also V stabilizer, you could also look into using the improved rotation mechanism, but I think you get more out of the improved aiming unit. I actually freaking love this because the thing's actually really accurate at this point. Otherwise, so like another one I wanted to point out, which I thought was pretty funny, doing it this way, playing a TOG 2, decided, like, everyone's like, throw a turbocharger and stuff on there. I'm like, why not throw improved hardening, to where I have it up at 1720 for the HP, which is between a tier 8 and a tier 9 basically heavy tank, which is just insane because you're playing a tier 6. And then obviously you have vents and the rammer to kind of help your DPM out a bit. And this thing, even though it's slow, is clunky. Is it good? No. It's actually kind of funny showing up to the fight with an extra 120, I believe, HP. And it's kind of hilarious. Or you just give the enemy more XP for killing you. In any event, though, let me know, you know, some interesting combos that you did in the, you know, comment section here. And, you know, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.